directors of the Tata Group in orange. The size of the companies, the number of directorship positions that they've had historically over time. The size of the directors is again based on the number of directorship positions that they've held historically over time. And the group almost seems to break up into two sets. And what I've been told is that this is the old set of Tata companies. This is a new set of Tata companies. And while there are some prominent people that are bridging the gap and are acting as directors in common across these groups, like for example, B. Muthuraman, Nishat Hussain, J.J. Irani, etc., there are a set of people like A.J. Engineer, H.H. Mangam, H.K. Setna, who are primarily belonging to the old set of Tata companies, and some people like B.B. Engineer, D.N. Ghosh, Amal Ganguly, etc., who are mostly associated with the second set of companies. Now, if the Tata Group were to split, by no means do I have any evidence to say that it will or not, but if it were, then I would probably argue that along this chasm is where that split would occur, and these are the companies that would be taken by the different sets of people. Let's get back to geographic visualizations a bit. There's something that I wanted to show you on weather data. We were looking at the temperature of every single district in the country and trying to see if we can just play that as a video, which is what you see here. Now, you'll see that over time there are waves of heat going across the country. The color reproduction isn't quite as good here, but I guess you can see that there's waves of heat going through from January to December every year. It's interesting that the temperature actually hasn't changed all that much between 1900 to 2000 as it does between January and June, for example. That variation is several orders of magnitude higher than the effect of, if you will, global warming, which is not to say that there isn't global warming, just that the magnitude of difference. If you say that, oh, I can feel it, it's global warming, no, you cannot feel it. Over a century, the temperature is barely budged. But while seeing this, you may notice a little spot out here, a flashing spot. This is a district which is hot when the surrounding areas are cool and cool when the surrounding areas are hot. That happens to be Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh. No one quite knows why this is happening. It does have countercyclic behavior, and I've recently been told by some prominent people that this has been known for some time by Naxalites who use that as an alternate base when the weather turns adverse. It's an ongoing research project as to why this is happening. But then, it hasn't been spotted till date. Part of the reason that has not been spotted is because it's very difficult to quantify a measure like countercyclic geographic patterns over time. Right? How do you even capture that in an analytical metric and then see if there is a particular district that has a high or low value for this? These kinds of patterns usually get spotted when you're just playing around with the data and exploring and trying to see what insights you can get out of it. So while playing around with data, one of the things that we were looking to do was to see who the fastest one-day international cricket batsman was, right? Just for the heck of it. And the answer that we got at that time was that it was a South African who had a strike rate of 200%, which was whopping. So we quickly checked out his stats. He did have a 200% strike rate. He played one match, hit a 4 and got out. Not quite what we're looking for. And in most of these cases, for example, if you were to take a bank and look at its profitability metric, which is the most profitable branch or which is the branch that had the highest growth, it will invariably be some obscure branch which had probably about 50 lakhs of deposits that doubled to 100 lakhs of deposits, and you now have a growth of 100%. Whereas if the Mumbai branch grew by 0.2, if let's say the Nariman branch grew by 0.2%, that would be 200 crores in itself. So you also need a sense of priority. So what we said was, let's take a look at all of the players in one-day internationals in India and see if we can plot that at one shot. So this is a representation of every player that's played one-day internationals in India. The size of the box is the number of runs that they've scored. The larger the box, the more runs they've scored. So Tendulkar is right there on top with about, at that point, he had 18,000 runs. The color is based on the strike rate. So the faster they score, the higher the strike rate. The greener it is, the slower they score, the redder it is. So you can see that Tendulkar is moderately fast. Sehwag was faster. Kapil Dev was pretty fast. Ravi Shastri was slow. Not that we need this to tell us that Ravi Shastri was slow. So was Mohindra Amarnath, so was Manoj Prabhakar, and so on. Incidentally, you will notice that a lot of the players that were playing in the 80s are the ones that are slow. Gavaskar, Amarnath, Ravi Shastri. And you could also attribute that to the speed of the game. Partly the rules have changed so that the rules are more batsman friendly today. Partly just the targets have increased considerably. 200 was a good score in the 80s, 300 is a good score now. In fact, the strike rate tends to increase by around 3.5 percentage points every decade. Now, if we adjust for that and ask the question, who's the fastest player in one-day international? While there may be no definitive answer, you can certainly say that from a strike rate perspective, Sehwag's strike rate of 104 and Kapil Dev's strike rate, which in actual fact is 94.9, but when you adjust for this slope of 3.5 percentage points, comes to exactly the same 104. These two are probably the fastest players that we have. But let's start looking at the patterns of play. So how consistent is Sehwag? How consistent is Tendulkar? How consistent is Ganguly? How consistent is Dravid? What we have here is every single innings that has been played in one-day internationals ever by each of these players with the same syntax. So the size is based on the number of runs, the color is based on the speed. So this was Tendulkar's 200 against South Africa, and this was the 186 that he scored against New Zealand. This was, let's say, a relatively fast innings by Gavaskar, 103 that he scored at a pretty fast strike rate. The only match where I recall him playing faster than Srikanth. Then you can start looking at the statistics against this as well. Click, drill down, let's see what the match scores look like. So that was the match, those were the scores, and you get down to the raw data. So if you have an interface to play around and explore the data in this kind of a way, that leads to certain kinds of advantages. For example, at P&G, one of the things that they had was how do we see our overall global revenue broken up by channel, by product, by geography. So this is an anonymized version of what we created, where you have the worldwide revenue, anonymized obviously, broken up by geography. The width of each of these arcs is based on the total volume of revenue coming from that region. Broken up by channel, partners, stores, direct, broken up by product. And against each of these, you have the standard ABC classification in FMCG, which is this doing good, bad, ugly kind of thing, with specific targets as far as they're concerned, which I'm not going to go into, but allowing them to drill into say, okay, looks like my product 8 is not doing too well in the partners channel in Japan. Why is that? Let me see if product 8 is doing well overall or not. Looks like it's primarily in Japan, in the partner segment that it's suffering, and the store segment as well. But in other geographies, it seems to be doing okay. So is that because Japan is doing bad? Let's click on Japan, explore. Now Japan seems like things are pretty bad right across with a few exceptions. Stores channel is doing relatively well. Let's look at stores channel. Now stores channel is doing well only in the UK and Japan. The rest of the areas is not doing well. Click, 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 you get to explore. Now the thing about this is just a PowerPoint presentation. No more than that. Yet it, in terms of technology, it doesn't take anything more than that. And yet the level of interactivity that you get or can aspire for certainly is pretty high. I'm going to, in the interest of time, skip this one and go on to something else. So we, in another example, we were working with a tea company, and they said, look, we have a problem with fraud. We've got a lot of these tea lots that are coming in, but these tea lots are adulterated. We want to see why this is happening. Are there specific patterns? Are there specific areas where this is an issue? So we looked at it this way. Let's take all of the 100,000 tea lots that we had data for. How many of these are coming in from which broker? The width of each of these bars represents the volume of data coming in from one particular broker. The color represents the percentage of adulteration. So I can see that, for example, by transporter, this one transporter has a reasonably high percentage of adulterated tea. But the primary culprit are a series of brokers. What seems to be happening is these brokers, a set of them, are shipping through mainly one particular agent who is mainly shipping through one particular transporter, and they are mostly sending it to one particular receiving plant. They did an investigation and found that this particular agent actually is the employer for all of these brokers, and that the first, second, and third were all, the first, second, and third brokers were actually brothers who had set up companies with different agencies and were colluding with the transporter to provide this tea. Led to a couple of arrests from the police as well. Now, what I'm trying to say, skip all of this, is ultimately what we're doing here is presenting data, mostly averages. I haven't gone to any of the analytics out here, but out there, just in the data, there are stories, there are insights, there are cases of fraud, there are cases of extramarital affairs, there are cases of all kinds of insights which often lie hidden. And part of the reason they lie hidden is because we aren't as good with numbers as we are with pictures. We aren't as good with text as we are with pictures. Think about it. We've been looking at numbers in earnest, large-scale data for the last 50 years. We've been looking at text pretty much since the Gutenberg press, 600 years. But we've been looking at visual imagery ever since whatever we evolved from had eyes, which is several millennia. And we are significantly better at processing visual information than we are at any other kinds of information. If there's one thing that I suggest, it is take data and plot it raw. Invariably, there will be some kinds of insights that come out of it that you would not have seen. A bit about us, we are Gramener, a data visualization company. All of the visualizations that you saw out here were created by a software that we have. More examples are at gramener.com. My contact details are on the top right, my email ID and phone number. Would be happy to answer any queries or be happy for you to reach out at any point. Thank you. built a product that created all of these visualizations, completely custom built. Do you have 1 crore? Yeah, no, 1% commission. Just FYI, the way we found that out was by finding out the thickness of 1,000 rupee note, which is available on Wikipedia, and just doing the math. So in terms of technology, it's just purely custom built. That's right. We sell this product, so hoping to make some money out of it.
Okay, so what we'll do is that we are running half an hour behind, but we have enough buffer in the time, so we can catch it up. So in the agenda that you have, you can add half an hour whenever you want to know start time and end time now. So we'll split the conference. So here the technical track is going to happen, and the hall just opposite to it will have the analytics track. So we have the first technical track, which will be taken by Mr. Sampath Manickam. He's Regional Head Data Center in Airtel, and his topic is how big data and cloud computing are driving the business success. So just to introduce Mr. Sampath. Mr. Sampath is a technology and business leader with 18 years of extensive experience in ICT domain. He's having a rich experience in having worked for Reuters, IBM Global Services, Wipro, and presently working with Nextra Data Limited, which is a subsidiary of Bharti Airtel Limited, as a Southern Regional Head for Data Center, Managed Services and Cloud Practice. He's expert in providing complex ICT solutions, consulting, product management, delivery, and go-to-market strategy, addressing multiple enterprise organizations and telecom customers across the globe. So we have Mr. Sampath over for you, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm going to talk about the big data. We've been discussing since morning about what is big data. Especially I want to talk about big data, cloud computing, how it drives the business success. I have a brief agenda which talks about a little bit touch upon the big data. We are familiar since morning after the Nitesh spoke and also the Anand spoke about big data. I'll also touch upon a little bit and what are the new emerging business models, business trends, and what are the opportunity for the various industries for the big data, and especially in telco. I represent a telco, Bharti Airtel. So what are the opportunities available in telcos and how cloud computing helps big data, and what are the key takeaways and about extra data. So we have talked about, Nitesh earlier talked about in the morning, extra byte. The data is growing exponentially. Data is growing from earlier 2005 there was nothing. When I studied in college days, we are talking about bytes, kilobytes, or some extent megabyte. Now we are talking about extra byte. 2015, we are talking about 8,000 extra byte, which is equivalent, 1 extra byte equivalent to 1,000 terabyte or 1 billion gigabyte. That's the kind of data is growing. Where this data is coming from? We have seen multiple statistics from Anand's presentation. I'll give you a different view of the same data in from being a telecom organization. See, if you're taking an IP internet well, just take 1 minute. I'm talking about 60 seconds. What happens in an internet in 60 seconds? Let's look at it. Within a minute of just 60 seconds, you look at how many data is getting generated. Whether if you take Facebook, you're talking about 277,000 of logins, 6 million of Facebook views. Or if we talk about YouTube, there are 30 hours of video uploaded, 1.3 million of video views are available. Same way, you touch upon, there are totally around 639,800 GB of global data is generated within 60 seconds in an internet. Which means there are number of network devices connected in an internet equal to population of the global populations. By 2015, we are talking about that number of network devices connected to the internet will become double the time of global population. That's the kind of data growth is happening in internet. And hence, even if you, in 2015, you talk about to view a video that's get generated in a particular second, it takes 5 years to view a video that's going on in internet a particular second. That's the kind of data is going on. So what is it for us? So that means there is a need to analyze the data. These are the various data generated within the organization. It could be a structured data, it could be a unstructured data, could be a structured data, example log data or a transaction data, or it could be unstructured video, images, or audio files. And important, the social media that we talked about, it's also giving so much of data. Hence, there is a need to analyze this data. And especially when you talk about social media, I want to, the Gartner talks about the social mobile information, which is analyticals and cloud, as the nexus of forces of next generation technologies. So I'll give you an example. Being a telco, we provide multiple mobile applications. These days, mobile being used to access not only make a calls, it's also used to access internet. 74% of the mobile users use internet, out of which 54% use social networking. So we do provide a lot of intelligent applications. Just one example, for our insurance companies, we provide an application using mobile on a CRM on mobile, which they can also use to promote the product and campaign to the end users. When the salesperson goes to the consumer to sell insurance product, he will analyze about the complete information about the end user, what are the kind of insurance policies he has already taken, what are the next kind of policy he'll be looking at. It's also integrated with the social networking. Of course, when I say that telco is integrating social network, they have multiple partners who support in the back end. A technology partnership, it could be a big data partnership, it could be a also some of the system integrated software vendor. So we provide such kind of the application which will help the salesperson to sell the right kind of the product for the end user who can pick and choose the insurance policy that he wants. What I'm talking about, the big data is not a single technology. It talks about a social, a mobile, also the analytical and cloud. I'll talk about cloud in a while. So all these four forms a key for any technology. The social, as I said, it's giving so many people are connected. For example, Facebook, we are talking about 1.15 billion active users. Google Plus, 500 million active users. LinkedIn, 238 million users. So all this, so much of data is getting generated. It can be used whether for provide the right campaign for the organization or to do any kind of analysis, whatever like Anand showed, how this data can be analyzed to produce various visualization, which will help business to take a right decision, whatever the decision they want to take. What kind of decision can be taken? It can be taken basically to monetize this data available to organization, to improve the customer efficiency or the process efficiency, customer experience, launch new products. As I said, we launch 8,000 campaigns in a telco environment every month, and reduce the cost of operations. How can I reduce the cost of operation? By focusing on right investment, where we can invest, what kind of network to be added, which part of the city to be added, which part of the circle we need to invest on a 4G or a 3G or a 2G kind of, or even how to enhance the security capabilities, where to store the data, which part data has to be stored inside the organization, outside the organization, how kind of security governance to be built in, etc. So all this, the meaning can be derived out of so much of data, whatever I talked about. The exabyte of data is coming from various sources, whether internal within the organization or outside the organization. Hence, there is a need for the big data. I mean, big data is something not new. Of course, it's new because it's analyzed the real-time information, handling a much more complex and huge data. Earlier, we used to handle only historical and silos of data. Even if you take any organization, there are multiple segmentation. The support organization will focus on the same customer, will look the customer data information in a different view. In a telco environment, for example, we have a touching base, some of you, I have mobile customer, could be a DTH customer, including the mobile, the internet, or a broadband customer. There are multiple silos within the telco exists. So earlier we used to handle all this analytical, in a standard analytical way, or in a mature state. I'm talking about 10 years back or 5 years back. All this complex analytical technique, which used to be done in the batch processing mode. Now we are talking about how this kind of so much of customer base that we are handling, how it can be handled in a real-time information, how to handle including taking the data from a social media that we talked about, which Gartner talks about, the SMAC, how to take the data and produce the meaningful informations which will help the business to take a right decisions, and it provides various methodology and statistic capabilities which can add value to the business. So what are we talked about data is growing. We talked about the social plays an important role. Mobile also plays an important role because mobile is social, social is mobile. And we are also talking about big data is required. What are the key factors to be considered for rolling out a big data? We have seen big data can do magics. The kind of visualization shown by Anand in the previous presentations. You have seen Mahabharata, how Arjuna and the connected with various other characters played in the Mahabharata. Same way, so some of the various factors, if any organization looking at big data to be implemented, some of the key factors, the first factor, it comes a business. Even though the big data is getting implemented by the CIO organization or the IT organization, but it should have a right strategy. What is the strategy to adopt a big data? Or what is the ROI? And especially executive sponsorship in any organization to implement big data is very, very important. Otherwise, the success of big data or the in organization will not take place. That is the first one. The second one, identifying the right set of data sources. Even before starting the big data implementation, so what we'll talk about, which data source, where the data source is coming from, and also qualify the data. When I say they qualify, it also a lot of cleaning up activity which IT guys has to do, whether to avoid the duplication or also to avoid some of the unwanted data sources, identify the right data sources, etc. That's a second. It also takes a lot of time to do the cleaning up exercise of the data. Cleansing, a lot of multiple cleansing tools are available, but the cleaning exercise itself takes a separate project even before kickstarting the big data. Hence, the business or the management team has to wait before kickstarting the big data. And the third one, availability of the right skills. We need the people, data scientists, to do such kind of analysis, produce the visualization or the impact using data, what it can help to the business. So these days, even I used to interact with one of my old friend in Microsoft. He used to talk about the data scientist is one of the highest paid job, and a lot of demand, less supply. People are throwing money, especially across the globe. They throw for a data scientist kind of a profile, a lot of salaries being paid. That's one of the highly demanding job. Not only data scientists, it's cut across a lot of the analytical people who do on demand, who have a high demand on a big data rollout projects. The next one is scalable on the demand computing and the storage infrastructure. We are talking about so much of data. One, we are talking about 8,000 of exabytes by next year. Where do you store such huge data? And it has to be collected, it has to be